From the bayous in Louisiana to the timber country up north, you'll find them out on the trap line, chasing furs to put up on the board, mixing up another batch of that magical stuff, chilling around the fire after the show. Hey, it's Sarah and Jeff, and maybe a guest on the Trapping Radio 2.0.
All right, well, welcome to Trapping Radio. I am here in West Virginia at the Southeastern NTA, and I have captured a famous, I heard this twice today, a famous trapper and the guy that puts all of these NTA events together, and I have here with me Bryan Nelson. So we are going to just kind of go through and get to know Bryan a little better. I haven't had a whole lot of time to sit down and talk with you. It happens every time I see you at the conventions. You are so busy. So thank you for taking a little bit of time to sit down and chat a little bit and get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. So, you are an accomplished trapper. A lot of people look up to you, and you have been fortunate to make a living trapping, and I think that's an accomplishment in itself. So, but starting way back, kind of what is your first experience trapping, and how did it all get started in the early days?
Well, it's interesting. I think I may be one of the few people that I kind of knew what I wanted to be from a very early age. My grandfather used to get Field and Stream magazines and Outdoor Life magazines, and I spent a lot of time with them growing up. And I would look through the magazines and look at the pictures, and I remember at a very early age discovering, and this was in the 70s, mid-70s, discovering an ad for Have a Heart cage traps in the back, and, you know, a little ad, and you can make a living doing this, and it just, I don't know, it struck a nerve, and I didn't have any traps or any experience whatsoever. We moved to a farm in the early 80s, and the first animal I trapped was rabbits. My grandfather built me wooden box traps, and I trapped rabbits, and he actually showed me how to tie snares with piano wire or picture wire. And I snared rabbits. The first fur bearer that I caught was an opossum in a box trap set for a rabbit.
Okay, so what do you mean? Describe a box trap for a rabbit.
So, you're familiar with cage traps that we use for live, ADC work. Well, a box trap is made out of wood. It's boards, and it's just got a drop door on one end, and it's hard to describe without using my hands, and these people can't see my hands. It's just a stick that drops down through the back.
Oh, okay.
And there's a fulcrum pivot point, so when they hit the stick, the door drops.
Okay. So it's kind of like a wooden live trap.
It's a wooden live trap.
Oh, okay,
exactly
Very
what it is.
cool.
That was a simple way to put it.
I never even heard of that, yeah.
And actually, you can still buy wooden box traps, so I think WCS sells wooden rabbit traps. And rabbits tend to like the wooden boxes better, especially after you've caught some rabbits, because they absorb that rabbit smell, whereas they tend to sometimes avoid wire.
Yeah.
They tend to go readily into a wooden cage box trap. So if anybody wants to trap a rabbit, a box is better than a cage.
What an idea. I never even thought of that. But I mean, even when you're raising rabbits, wooden boxes and all the things.
Nest boxes and everything else. Yep. Okay. So that's how I got my start.
Okay. So he built you
he built those for me. Yep.
Very cool.
My first steel traps, I don't know, I probably found a couple of foot traps somewhere. I remember the first traps that were ever purchased for me. My father bought them. There was a half dozen 110 conibears from an Army-Navy surplus store. And this was kind of the after the fur boom. I mean, I missed the fur boom by a couple years. There were still traps in stores, and there were still trappers around, but it wasn't like it was everywhere. And he bought me a half a dozen. This is about middle school. I was middle school age, 7 or 8, because I remember checking out books from the library on trapping and reading about these wonderful devices. And so we got those. I had no idea how to set them. I remember setting muskrat traps with they were little baby turkey legs, because we raised turkeys, and I thought rats must eat these. They don't. Yes. But anyway, so then we did eventually caught a muskrat, eventually caught a mink, eventually caught a raccoon, and I caught my first gray fox, all on the farm that we lived on, one little stretch of creek that ran through the farm. And
so you just figured it out?
Well, yeah, with the books, a few books, and just kind of play it by ear. I mean, I have real resistance to people, self-made people, because I don't think any of us are. I've learned a lot from a lot of different sources, but yeah, at that age, I had Bob Gilsvick's Modern Trapline book. That was one that came through the Book of the Month Club. I had a fur trapping book by Jerry Blair and Bill Musgrove out of Arizona, which none of those, I mean, the sets were Arizona desert sets, and I lived in the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. But it was a good book, and it's still available. And then one other book, I can't remember who wrote it, but it was a fur trapping book. And it was the neat thing about it was neat now, but the books in the library were so outdated with information that really really off the mark. But it was interesting stuff. And I've gotten fur fish game and trappers. Well, it was a trapper and predator caller then. For a long time. It's since I was in middle school at least. So,
Yep.
And then when I went into the military, this kind of fell by the wayside. I got married, quickly had a son, and then right after Jacob was born, I got sick and was hospitalized for about a month, and spent a lot of that time laying in a hospital bed reading magazines, trapping magazines. And I think at that point, I just had the second revelation of what I'm going to do for a living. Those near-death experiences make you look at life differently, I guess. And so coming out of the military, I was just medically discharged, and we came home and rented a place, and I worked a factory job, which I didn't like, and trapped some. There was still, the fur market wasn't great, but there was a fur market.
So kind of how were you trapping and working at the same time? What did that look like then?
It wasn't the scale it is today.
Right.
I mean, it was a few dozen traps before work or after work, and it just mostly walking, because literally when I got out of the Navy, we owned a minivan. So trapping off-road was not a thing. It was, I drove down and parked the farm next door to the house we rented, had some fox and some water running through it, and so I could trap a little bit of everything, but it wasn't any sort of commercial enterprise at that point. It became more and more serious, trapping not huge numbers by today's standards, but the steps everybody comes through when you come up through this. The first you catch a fox and you think you've done this amazing thing, and now it's just routine. When you catch your first 50 fox, now you think you've hit it grows, and the numbers are not the measure that they are, but they aren't. It's the excitement and being out there in the woods and being in the field, and I'm numbers motivated now because it's how I make my living. But you have to catch numbers to get paid. I kind of honestly, some days I miss the days when I didn't have to.
I was gonna say when. Well, so you're working the full-time job and you really loving the trapping. When did it switch to okay, I want to make a living? When did you become a fur trapper or a live market trapper, or were you a fur trapper first, or did you jump right into live market? Kind of how did this evolve?
So I was a fur trapper first for a long time. A serious hobby fur trapper. I got active in the Virginia Trappers Association. About that time, we were living in New Market, renting a house. John Coakley was our district director at that time, and it got me more interested in it. I was leaning that way, but I didn't know I had no idea how to make it a living. It was one of those things. It was still figuring out what's next, and so, but I was active in the association. As a serious hobby fur trapper, I actually got elected to president of the Virginia Trappers Association and served 2 terms, 4 years as president of the Virginia Trappers, and continued to work different jobs, different things. And at some point, I worked for my brother-in-law for a while in the travel industry. We sold rental houses in Europe. And that gave me a little more free time to pursue this stuff because it was family, and, we kind of worked schedules to where it worked well for me to do my thing. And we were raising kids at the same time, so that, that always gets in the, I don't want to say it gets in the way, but it takes up a portion of your time that you can't dedicate to. We took our kids to school. We didn't put them on the bus, so I would drive the kids to school in the morning and check traps. So that cut into time of, leaving in the morning at 3 or 4 in the morning, and so that didn't work. But somewhere around 2000, it was August of 2004. At that point, I had started to do some nuisance work, trapping some groundhogs for people, trapping some skunks for people, just word of mouth stuff. I wasn't advertising anything. At that point, I found myself between jobs through... the way I like to work, I lost my brother-in-law. The business went under, and so I went a separate way. Worked for somebody else, and that business was in the process of going under because of mismanagement from a son that was skimming from the till and things of that nature. And when I left that position, I kind of made a decision that if I was going to work for an idiot, it was going to be me, and I could take responsibility for myself. And so I had a long talk with my father. Told him what I wanted to do, what I was looking to do, that I wanted to do this for a living. And he said, well, you know what, if you don't try, you'll never forgive yourself for not trying. I told Katrina that I was going to do it, and she thought I should get a real job.
Yes.
But we didn't. We took the jump. We went from having a real job to not having a real job really quick. That happened to be September, and that happened to be when our live fox season is open in Virginia, and someone put me in touch with a pen owner because I knew how to catch fox. I knew how to catch fox for fur, and so if you can catch fox for fur, you can catch fox for live market, although there's a lot of differences in trapping fox in September than there is in November and December. But anyway, we did that. That carried me from September to about January was live fox trapping. The fur market was still there, and then of course I was trapping whatever got in front of me at that point, raccoons or whatever. And I have a real love for fur. It pains me greatly that the fur market is where it is. So throughout this deal, I've tried to continue to fur trap when I can, but it quickly became apparent that I make my money trapping live red foxes. Everything else takes time, and time is money. So, one year I love trapping muskrats. That goes back to one of my early things I caught was a muskrat, and so trapping muskrats was cool. And so the muskrat prices were up one year, and I worked my tail off trapping muskrats while I was fox trapping, and I caught a little over 100 rats, which is, for that country is great. It's a good catch. I know a lot of guys that catch 100 rats a day. And so, but, and, they shipped to NAFA, and I actually hit that market perfect. They sold those 100 rats for $16 a piece. And then I had a revelation because I sat down and I figured out that 100 rats at $16 a piece is $1,600. And I'm getting, at that time, $50 a fox. And so I sat down and figured out how many foxes I needed to catch to equal $1,600, and it wasn't that many. But I spent a lot of time trying to catch those muskrats that I could have been spending trapping foxes. And so that was the real earth-shattering revelation that I needed to keep my butt on dirt and trap fox and do what I know how to do. And again, that's the part that I miss because I love mink trapping. I love muskrat trapping. I love to go just get in the water and play, but I pay bills. with
I was
this.
going to say, when all the seasons open, and you have to be so disciplined to
Yeah.
say, I can't go to North Dakota and catch 300 or 200 muskrats a day.
Not unless
because-
it pencils out to more than what I'm making at
right,
home, and that's
that's a tough it's a tough position to be in that I had never had thought about before. But,
And thankfully, I love trapping red fox, so that makes
Yeah.
that decision a little easier. It's not, but yeah, if you're going to do this for a living, you need to understand where your money comes from and understand that it is no longer a hobby; it's a profession, and you have to pursue things, and that's things get in the way of that sometimes. You go to these conventions and we have fun visiting, but I would much rather be home trapping right now and making money.
Yep.
So it's tough. You have to make decisions sometimes to do different things. We're at a place in our lives now where we're not as strapped for food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because
And
that's one of the questions I was going to ask is, what advice do you have? We see people, you're in the convention industry, and you see different people coming in to the industry that want to trap full time, or say you're living the dream because you're a trapper and all of this, but what don't they see? What advice do you have them that they're not seeing? I mean,
well,
how do you
number one,
find your worth in that?
you have to have a supportive family, because unless you're single, you either have a very supportive girlfriend or a very supportive wife, a very understanding wife. Katrina went and worked Katrina doesn't work now. Katrina's retired. She has been for 5 years. So people say, well, she's making the money. Katrina worked early on in this, and that helped a lot. We were both bringing in a certain percentage of our income. I don't know too many people these days that's not the case. But if your wife is not with you, or if your girlfriend, or if your boyfriend, or whatever it is,
Right.
if they're against what you're doing, you're going to have problems, because you need to be thinking clearly about what you're doing and be able to just focus on doing it. Number two, you've got to live where you have a realistic animal that can pay your bills.
Right.
Nobody's making a living as a muskrat trapper right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not the way. It's not a thing. Nobody's making too much of a living trapping raccoons. It might be fun, but it's not how you make a living.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to be blessed living in an area that has a live market. There are not a lot of states in the country that have a live fox market for the training preserves. So that is huge, and it happens to be an animal that I'm good at and I like to catch, and I live where there is a good population that we can work with. But honestly, if you're looking to do this for a living, the ADC industry you're going to have some role in the ADC, and animal damage control industry. I did that for a lot of years. That was the other side
I
of
was just
this.
going to say, going back, you had mentioned that you,
Yep.
in between jobs, you had started dabbling into the ADC stuff.
Yep, and the live market fit perfectly with that, because the live market is predominantly in Virginia. It's a September through, you can run it through February, but a lot of times the weather will shut you down in January. But the ADC business, the nuisance wildlife business, you usually have a big tick up in February with skunk calls and squirrel calls into March. And then as you get into April and May, you've got the groundhogs and more skunk calls. And then if you do bats, I did bats for a long time. And that fits nicely into that. I could do this live market / fur trapping in the September to January time frame, and do the little ADC nuisance wildlife work from the February through August, September time frame. And early on in those early years, I was trying to do both in the fall. I would try to keep running my groundhog jobs and my skunk jobs and squirrel jobs. And, you're running around. I remember one time I had a pair of hip boots in the morning because I was trapping muskrats, and then muck boots because I was trapping foxes after that, and then roofing boots because I was on a roof chasing squirrels in the evening. You can't do all of it very well.
Right.
And again, so you need to learn these things and I learned it. If I wanted to be a fox trapper, then I needed to go be a fox trapper and focus exclusively on that. So I for many, many years, I shut my business down in about the middle of September, 1st of October, depending on how my work was finishing up. exclusion. We were doing a lot of closing down houses, fixing stuff, which is not my forte. I'm not a carpenter, but I did it because that's where money was. And so a lot of that time would fall into that September, early October. And so a lot of times it would push me to October. And September is a hard month to fox trap. It's hot. Stuff's not moving. There's lots to eat. So I struggled a lot of times most Septembers to do any more than just spin my wheels financially. So usually that fit better into doing that work. But I ran Advantage Wildlife Solutions was my wildlife business. I still own it. I still do some calls, but I ran that for nearly 20 years, and we made it was a good living. There's good money in the ADC industry. You need to learn to charge appropriately, but it was nothing to bring home $2,000 or $3,000 a day in the ADC time, and I don't know anybody else making that kind. That's
right.
Better money than most people make working a job you don't like.
Yep.
So you got to kind of get used to the idea that you're going to trap groundhogs or you're going to trap squirrels. The flip side of that coin is you have to have people skills.
I was going to say, dealing with the homeowners potentially, could be, and I don't have much experience with it other than, the call that they say, well, I've got, beaver in my pond and there's, 10 of them or 12 of them in there and they're doing all this damage and then you only catch 2. They look at you funny, and I don't, I could never do the ADC business, but you have to.
That's an important educating your client is a very important thing, because just like moles, and I despise trapping moles because it's a pain, but they see all these tunnels and they think we must have 30 moles in our yard, and chances are they only have 2 or 3 in the whole yard doing all that tunneling. And you need to educate them to the fact that you don't have an army of moles in your yard, or they're going to expect that you produce an army of moles. And it's the same with squirrels in the attic. You don't want to trap your squirrels on the ground because you're going to trap every squirrel in the neighborhood. And if you want me to trap every squirrel in the neighborhood, I'll be glad to do that. But the problem squirrel is the one that's up on the roof. And if you're not trapping them up on the roof line, you're really just taking people's money. So it's you need to treat people fairly, and you need to educate. We're not allowed to relocate nuisance wildlife in Virginia, so it's a euthanization thing. And I always explained that to people. Look, some people would call and say, well, we want it relocated. Well, we can't. We're not allowed to do that. It's not good for the animal. It's not good for the animals where we would relocate it. The law doesn't permit us to do that, and so we're just not going to do it. And explain to them why. Most people, okay, we've got a problem. It's either us or them, and so it's going to be them. And if not, then they can live with it, and then they didn't really have a problem to begin with. So. Yeah. But just like anything else, if you're going to go into animal damage control, or if you're going to go into, you need to get educated. There's lots of forms of education out there that are available to people. You can shorten your learning curve a lot if you go to if you're looking for ADC work. There's lots of schools out there, courses out there that are put on that would shorten that curve and make you a better operator where you do good work for people. And it's the same on the other side. If you're going to be a canine trapper, there's places out there which will lead into this.
Great segue.
That teach this stuff, and shorten that learning curve.
Yeah, because I think there is quite a big gap from being a fur trapper and you love to trap and go out on opening day of season to set traps in the ground to being an ADC business owner. Like, that is just a very big leap. And sometimes I see people on Facebook that, may have just started learning how to trap and now they have a business, and, it's a big gap.
It is a big gap. And if you're not, maybe the first thing you need to do is sit down and really consider if you want to take this hobby that you love so much and turn it into something that you earn your living at. Because when you start earning your living at it, things change. Yeah. You lose. I don't want to say you lose. You do. You lose a lot of the romantic side of it. It's still enjoyable. I still love every minute of it, but it's work. Anybody
was
who ever
gonna
said,
say.
whoever, the guy that said, if you love what you do, you never work a day, he wasn't a trapper. Because I work my tail off a lot, and it's work, every bit of it, but I still love doing it.
Still love it, yeah.
And it doesn't matter, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's ADCs, groundhogs, or skunks, or trapping predators for ranches, or doing live market fox or coyotes or whatever. You got to work at it. You got to put in hours of time, and you need numbers of animals to have. If you don't have red fox in your country, you're not going to be a big-time red fox trapper. If you don't have lots of coyotes in your country, you're not going to be a big-time coyote trapper. So the number one thing you got to have on that side of things is the numbers of those animals to catch. And then the number two thing is access to them, land. I mean, the land is so important. People have no... the guys that trap on the back 40 of their uncle's farm have no clue about the number of permissions, and just constant looking for new properties to trap, and keeping up with landowner relations, and being, it's a huge chore every year, and it's never ending.
I was going to say, a lot of times we get questions. We ask, if you're listening and you want us to cover a topic that you're wondering about, and we get a lot of questions about permissions. Do you have any advice, or kind of to answer that question? Generally, how do you go about getting permissions, or what are some things that you've learned along the way?
Well, initially, if you're new to an area, if you're just starting out, you have to knock on doors, and I don't like knocking on doors. Nobody likes knocking on doors. A better way, or an easier way sometimes, if you have somebody get people to get permission, or at least drop your name to people that might give you permission. Anymore, I don't knock on doors almost never. But when I go to a new farm, I talk to that farmer, and I explain to that farmer that, look, I need more land. I need to have access to different property. Do you know anybody? And especially if you're trying to go to this area in your state. It's different in different states. But in your state, you want to say, I'm trying to get permission over here. Do you know anybody? And get your farmers, get your friends to be helping you get this permission. Because people will trust you more when you're referred to them by someone that they know, than if I just walk on off the street and knock on the door. That's a weird thing these days.
Absolutely.
Maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it was more commonplace. And the rule of thumb was dress nice, look neat, be polite, expect to get told no a lot, and just keep going at it. And you'll still get permission that way. But these days, when people knock on your door, it's weird.
Yep.
I don't care where you live.
Yep.
It's weird. And so automatically the person on the other side of the door is on guard, uptight.
Yeah.
And so, you're better off trying to find a different route in to that getting permission side of things. Now, in the ADC world, I don't have a lot of advice on getting the jobs. Advertising, the nuisance wildlife, you got to spend money to make money. And I've done about all of it. I've done newspaper ads and TV commercials and radio ads, and you got to spend enough money to make an impact if it's going to work. But it does require spending some money to do it.
So you've been in this trapping industry for a long time. You've met a lot of people in and out. Tell me about how you met Matt Jones.
Well, the first time I met Matt Jones, he came to one of our Virginia conventions when I was president. He came up, he was selling some lure and DVDs back then, and he came and did a demo, and we talked a little while there. Not a lot, but we had a time to drink coffee in the morning together and kind of shoot the bull. Joe Van Houten was an old timer that we were sitting with one morning. I remember that conversation pretty well. And so that was the first meeting. Talked to him on Facebook and Trapper Man over the years, off and on. And we did our first school together in January of 2019. We were both invited to Whitetail Heaven Outfitters outside of Lexington, Kentucky. They were going to put on a trapping school, and Anthony Wilcox, Flash Wilcox there, he knew both Matt and myself. He knew Matt more than he knew me, and I guess, roundabout way, we all three were there as instructors for that school. Matt and I and Katrina, my wife Katrina, we stayed in a cabin there at that lodge together. It was I call it a cabin. It was, 4-bedroom cabin. But so we bunked there, and the students bunked in the main lodge. And so during that time, we had quite a bit of time in the evening to sit around and shoot the bull, and kind of hatched the plan where we started our own school the following year. So January of 2020 was the first time that we did our trapping, our eastern predator trapping school. There in western Kentucky. It's not far from Paducah's, where Matt currently lives, and has access to some ground there that we were able to do it on. And so we started that then, and it's kind of been a thing ever since, and we're going to try to keep doing it. It's getting harder to book. People are tight with their money. The fur market's down. Coyotes aren't worth much, and so people are not spending that money, and it costs money to run the school. So if we don't get enough students, we got to seriously look at, do we keep doing it, or do we hold off for a year or two and see how it goes?
So tell me a little bit more about, tell me about the school as far as where, like, how many days, what do you focus on? Is there classroom setting? Is it on the line setting?
Okay. Well, it's on the line. We do 4 students at a time, and we do 3 days with each group of students. We try to do 4 groups of students a year, so 16 total students. We've done a few more than that a couple of years if we had a little longer access. And the first year we did 7. We had 7 students come out. And then since then it's been close to 16 every year. Like I said, we do 3-day ride-alongs. It's an actual working trap line.
Say, is it during season? What time of year is
it? It's January. During season.
January.
Yep, in western Kentucky. So we have access to a place where we can trap coyotes and bobcats. There is some fox there, but not a lot. Mostly coyotes and some cats. We set a trap line. Usually Matt and I will set a line to start. Not a huge line. We'll probably get 30 or so sets out between the two of us for the first day. That way the first group of guys has something to look at when they get there. But that first group is the guys that get to see more traps put in the ground. We're setting more of the line. We try to run about 80 to 100 sets between the two of us. We run 2 trucks together. So we're all, we're piled into 2 pickup trucks and just go down through the line and check traps as we go. So group 1, you see a lot of traps set. Groups 2 and 3, they still see sets made. They see a lot of remakes. They see catches because we're catching stuff. Typically, and then we usually do a group 4. Unfortunately, group 4 a lot of times sees a lot of catch circles, and this is where we caught this, and this is where we caught that, because we've caught, within the first 3 groups, we typically catch 50 to, we've never broken 60 during the school, but we do 50 coyotes, some cats, and a fox or 2. Sometimes if there's a beaver around, we'll trap a beaver, but it's primarily a predator trapping school is what we're putting on, how to trap coyotes, how to trap cats. Classroom, no. Our classroom is outside in the dirt. We're working in the pickup trucks and making sets. We leave morning about daylight, thereabouts, not before daylight usually, but we get up. My wife Katrina makes the meals. We eat a good breakfast. We go out and on the line. She packs our lunch that we take with us, and we're out all day. We usually get done and get home about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. We do sit around and bull, myself and the students and Katrina, at the lodge. We have a nice lodge where every student has their own room, private room. There's shared bathrooms. There's 2 bathrooms in the house that students share, and then Katrina and I have a master bedroom suite that we tuck ourselves away in. But yeah, she cooks all the meals, so all that's included in it. We do some skinning. We don't do a lot. It depends on what we're catching. The coyotes out there that time of the year are pretty rough. So it's, we're not going to skin it if it's not worth money. Now, if somebody really wants to see something skinned, we'll skin it. We do skin the cats. We'll deal with the fox. But if you want to go fur handling, we're probably not the school for you. This is how we're showing you how we catch it, what we do. We cover snares, we cover foot traps.
And a lot of location.
A lot of location.
Yeah.
Probably more than anything. And to me, I took instruction from Slim Peterson. I was at the Fur Takers College. I've been to Newt Sterling's deal up there. To me, it's always been probably more about location and animal information than about how to dig a dirt hole set. I mean, everybody wants to see how to dig a dirt hole set or how to put a flat set in. And once you figure that out, it's simple. Just do it over and over again. It's not rocket science. We're putting a hole in the ground and bedding a trap in front of it, so that part to me is not the important part. The important part is knowing your animals and knowing your locations, and that's what we teach. We teach animal location, we teach animal behavior, and we have a lot of fun. I mean, Matt, if anybody's seen Matt's DVDs or been around Matt at any time, he's a riot, and you can't not have a good time. So.
Right. Well, Jeff asked me, he said, Jeff Dunlap said, well, if you're going to interview Bryan, you need to ask him to tell your best Matt Jones story because I'm going to interview Matt and I'm going to ask him the same thing about you. So... Maybe, I don't know, has he ever told you that you can get crabs from an otter from 8 feet away? He's a trip.
You'll have to ask Matt the otter crab story.
He's told me.
Yeah.
I didn't know if he's told you that is possible.
I have
to
heard,
catch crabs from otters.
I have heard that. Yeah, I have heard that. I have not witnessed that, but I have heard that story. Oh, that's a tough one because some of my Matt stories are
maybe
probably
they're not even to be
suitable.
repeated.
Yeah. Matt's often late, so an ongoing joke with us is we wager what time Matt's going to make it to wherever we are.
Because he's off site.
He's off site. He doesn't stay at the lodge with us. He lives near there,
yes.
So he goes home at night and stays at his house. And we meet at the gas station in the morning, and so it's often a wager as to whether he'll be there on time or 20 minutes late, or if I got to call him. But he's often late, so that's a fun Matt story.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
How do you keep him focused? I mean, he's.
It's like herding cats.
Yes.
It's just he's Matt, and we just once we're rolling, it's easy. But I don't say that I keep him focused or anything like that. It's fun to be around, and it's. He's certainly knowledgeable. I mean, he probably knows more about all of this stuff, not just, I'm a fox trapper and I know coyotes to a degree and I know some cat stuff, but over the years, he's done it all.
I mean, he's like a true outdoorsman and just talented in fishing and...
He's one of the few people left in the world that literally makes almost his entire living from the land in one form or another. And the fur market being down really hurts him because that was a large part of his income over the years. And they don't have a live market in Kentucky. So, I've kind of got him convinced to kind of look at some control work where we're getting paid maybe to take care of predators on some of these properties and nest predators. And so that we're out there for that. If anybody's looking for that, Matt and I are looking for places to go. I think because he loves to trap, and the school was giving us an opportunity for him to go trap because we make money from the school, but the fur market is not there to make money from the fur. The cats are, they're decent, but they're not great. The raccoon market, of course, hasn't been good for a long time. So, but he's made money from all of it at some time or another. But yeah, there's so many. You got to experience Matt. I don't have too many Matt stories I'm going to share on Trapping Radio, but...
So the school, would it be... it sounds like it's a little more advanced from a beginner who has maybe never trapped, or do you take it to that level, or you accept anybody wherever they are? If they're wondering, spending, making an investment to... Education is an investment, and should they feel uncomfortable if they haven't trapped before?
No. We've had guys come that have never set a trap. We have Gavin. I'm going to mention Gavin by name. He's from North Carolina. Gavin has come every year since we started this. And Gavin, when he first came, he owned some traps, but he had never caught a canine. I think he caught some raccoons in dog-proof traps, but he had never caught a canine. He had never caught a cat. And he came the first year by himself. It was just, he was the only one. We had 7 that first year. We had a group of 4, a group of 2, and Gavin. And Gavin went home from there, and he caught his first gray fox. Aww. He caught his first coyote. He's caught his first bobcat. And literally, he comes back every year. And like Katrina and I joked that he's our 4th child. Yes. And we've had other people that come. We've had several father and son teams come where the younger, the son's 10, 11 years old. We can scale it to whatever level it is. We had an Asian lady. She was in her early 20s, and her boyfriend came. That was kind of it was fun, but it was nerve-wracking going into it because we really didn't know what this was about, they came, and we had a really fun time with them, and so yeah, we can scale it to whatever your experience level is. Matt, you wouldn't believe it, but he is a very good teacher, especially of beginners. He boils it down to where people can understand exactly what it is about what's going on. Yeah. I'm probably a little bit better at just nuts and bolts, and maybe not so much new people, but I can do it. But Matt's exceptional
great.
at it.
He has that talent to explain things very simply, very basic in the beginning.
Yep. So yeah, if you, whatever your level is, and again, it is an investment. We're I don't know if we're supposed to talk about how much we charge or any of that stuff, but
no, give us all the details.
Well, so it's $1,400 for the 3 days instruction, but that's everything. That's your lodging, all your meals, and the ride along and the instruction. So it's the full 9 yards. Like I said, you've got your own room, shared bathroom.
But where can they sign up at? How do they find you? Or
probably reach out to me. I'm the point of contact.
Okay.
I don't know.
We can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes. I don't know about putting my phone number on there, but email address is probably better to put there. And I'm on Facebook. We have a school Facebook page, Eastern Predator Trapping Longliner School. That's a whole lot of words, but that's the page. And we advertise it there. And we do have some spots left for this January. And I'm reluctant to say this may be the last one, but I would tell people, if you want to come, you probably need to get on board, because if we can't fill it to a certain level, again, I do this for a living, so I got to sit down with a pencil and paper and go, is it worth it for me to quit what I'm doing at home where I'm making good money trapping to go to a school to teach it, and I'm going to lose money. Right. And so I can't do it and lose money. As much as I enjoy doing it, it needs to at least be a semi-break-even process of what we would make at home. And Matt's the same way. He's taken time off from commercial fishing where he's making good money fishing to do the school. We like doing it. It's fun. It gives us an opportunity to kind of trap with some fun in it. But if we're not making some money to where it's profitable for us, we have to go do what we do for a living. So we may or may not do this after this year. It's how I'm gonna put it out. I'm gonna play it by ear. But if you're serious about coming, if you're thinking about coming, go ahead and book your spots this year, and then you'll be glad you did. I've yet to have anybody ask for a refund or tell me they didn't feel like they had a good time and learned a lot. So,
all right, very cool. So, let's see, what else do I have on my list here? I just attended your demo here at the convention, and I thought it was really great how you opened up. You said typically you open your demos with talking about being active in the association and being a student of our industry. And it just made me wonder, who do you look up to in the industry, and kind of who have you idolized in the past, or who inspired you? I know you said you're a very competitive person. And
yeah, I'm a little competitive. Yeah, that would be me.
You've studied people that have caught a lot, and
and there's a lot. There's a lot of people. I would say people that I have looked up to over the years. Major Boddicker was one. Craig O'Gorman was one. I never took instructions from Craig, but I've read the books and looked at the videos. One time, when Clint Locklear was putting out a lot of stuff, I was following that. Mark Zager, as much as I hate me to say it, he's put out a lot of good information. And Tom Miranda early on, Tom Miranda was one. Because he was, early. One of the first trapping videos I bought, I was just telling Keith Winkler this, that I rented it. A Tom Miranda video was rented at a sporting goods store in Norfolk, Virginia. It was a 3-story sporting goods store, and they had like one little shelf of videos, and you could rent them by the day or by the week or whatever. And I rented a Tom Miranda raccoon trapping video. So that was early on. Today, I look at guys. Phil Brown is still inspirational to me, and I look at guys that are catching more than me or have caught more than me. Alan Claycomb out of Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Don Powell, although Don Powell doesn't catch more than me, Don Powell is just such a gentleman. It's so, Neil Olson is another one. You guys we rode with Neil last week, and he's a character, but he's been around this industry forever and done a lot for the trapping world. There's so many. I hate to not mention somebody, but those are some big ones that stick into my mind. I'm trying to think I know there's more. Mitchell Simpson down in Texas is just, the gentlemanly people that you don't really hear a lot out of them, but they're out there doing it. A lot of people never heard of Alan Claycomb. He's just one of those guys that did it quietly. Same with Mitchell. He's just a guy that does it quietly. I don't know about Wayne Reed. That he's...
I was going to say, what about Wayne?
No, I like Wayne. He's a good guy. Wayne Derrick. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Wayne Derrick and Gary Jepson. I actually have spent quite a bit of time with Gary Jepson. He's just a great, again, not a loud, not boisterous, just a quiet, getting it done kind of a trapper. But I learned so much from Gary. I was in his class at the FTA Trappers College, which I encourage people to go to. I've spent time not on his trap line, but on his line with him in the off season, looking at location and talking with Gary, because my daughter and my son both live in Killdeer, where Gary lives. So we get to go on family visits and visit Gary while I'm there. So those are two more. Excuse me. But Wayne Derrick, he's just, there's just a lot of people out there, and just there's so many great people in this industry that, I look for people, like I said, I look for people that catch more than I do, or do what I want to do, or where I aspire to be like them. And I look for people that are doing it humbly.
Yes.
I think that to me, I take a lot away from that, to be humble and to be, I never wanted to be, you said famous when we started this thing. I don't think of myself in that term. Never wanted to be famous. I want to be proficient at what I do, and I want to be able to make my living doing it. I don't need the fanfare or any of that other stuff.
You are a strong pillar in this industry, and you have a lot of people that all the things that you look up to others, there's a lot of people that look up to you. And I hope I'm doing the right by him. I'm trying to do, we do this NTA thing. I do encourage everybody. You need to be a member of your state association. You should be a member of the Fur Takers of America. You need to be a member of the National Trappers Association. And you can join as many state organizations as you can afford to join. I'm a life member of, I think, 7 different state organizations. The fight is out there every day. And the numbers are what matter. Having your name on that membership list lets that organization go before your representatives and say they represent this number of people. And you don't have to be a trapper to be a member of the organization. That's something that Rusty Kramer, I heard him talk about a little while back, where he's getting his landowners, when they have a problem and they want him to come help them, instead of getting paid, he's getting them to join. Or at least part of his payment is getting them to join the organization, because that gives you one more name on the list to say, we're representing these people. So join those organizations and do your part to help preserve this, because we're under attack every single day. Somewhere in this country, somebody's trying to take away somebody else's right to go harvest fur or harvest animals and manage our resources, and we need to fight Take care of that. Yep. I guess a couple last things. So if somebody is a member already and they want to be more involved in say the NTA, you're always looking for volunteers. If there's more that people want to do, you've paid your membership due, what else can you do? I'm sure you're always looking for extra.
Well, on my end, when I'm the convention coordinator, so I put on these conventions. Just coming out to the convention is a big thing, big part of it. But if you want to volunteer to help, get with me. We'll find something to do. Some of the jobs aren't very glamorous. I jokingly say, I work my volunteers pretty hard, but they keep coming back for more. So I guess it's a good thing. But we have a lot of fun at the conventions too. Yeah. I try to make it fun. But there's a lot of work, but many hands make light work of that stuff. Yeah. And so if you want to come to the national convention and help, get with me. If you want to come to a regional convention and help, get with me. If you want to host a regional convention in your state, get with me and we'll talk about what's involved with getting that to happen. But yeah, don't be afraid to speak up. I was bad about it at first too with my state association, not wanting to say, hey, I want to do something. Yeah. You kind of wait for somebody to ask you. And if you wait, you're probably not going to get asked to come help. You need to step forward and say, I want to do this. And it might mean cleaning the bathrooms. It might mean changing the toilet paper rolls. But it's something that has to get done. It's a job that a lot of places do. That stuff needs to get done. Nobody wants to do it. You have to take the trash out. You got to clean up after the event. And if you just come pitch in and help, trust me, you'll get more help. And you'll be a tremendous help and you'll be involved.
Or especially if you don't know anybody. I know being a trapper can kind of be an isolating thing, where it's not where you're out there publicizing you're a trapper. You don't see other trappers generally around. And if you want to build a friendship and build connections with other trappers like-minded like yourself, volunteering is a great.
We're loners by nature. Most trappers are somewhat loners, and so if you get out and start meeting trappers at trappers conventions, there's so many great people, and don't be afraid to speak up and introduce yourself. I've never had anybody yell at me for introducing myself. I've always been a warm handshake and a how do you do, and then So don't be afraid and just come out and introduce yourself and volunteer to help, and somebody will put you to work doing something for sure. Yep. And if not, don't let that stop you. Keep coming out, because like I said, sometimes people come and ask me, we're done. Yeah, we've done all the work. And they say, what can I do? Well, there's not really anything to do. Yeah. It's not that I'm turning your help away, but I don't want to just make you do busy work. Yeah. And so, but if you get there early enough in the process, we usually can find something for somebody to help.
All right. Well, Bryan, I sincerely appreciate you sitting down with us and sharing your story and a lot of the trialing times that you went through to be the trapper that you are today. And like I said, a lot of people look up to you, and I just thankful that you agreed to do this with me. So
I'm glad we had some time today. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yep. All right. Thanks.
Yep.